everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser, and it is a special Monday morning. Hopefully, you're getting your week kicked off the right way. This is the first day that I will get to go down to the VMAC and watch the Seahawks do a full OTA practice. This is offense, defense, no pads, none of that, but we'll get to see all the players on the field. This is the earliest I will have ever been able to see all the players on the roster that are in attendance, at least, compete against each other. Normally I've been one of the fans who gets to go during the training camp sessions that are open to the public. Last year, obviously, I got credentialed, and that was just before training camp in July. So this is a special treat that I will get to go down there, get my eyes on them, see these guys in action. There's only so much you can really learn in these non-padded practices, realistically, but I do get to see how players move. You do get to see how they look relative to one another. You do get to see, how the throws are, where the throws are going. Are there any players that are just catching your attention? So I'm excited. Should have some guys available. Hopefully, I'm sure there'll be a press conference. We'll see who they make available for that, and then also I hope to have a chance to talk to some guys later today. We'll see what I can work out. Now, for today's show, I had a little fun with the thumbnail. Hopefully you guys like that as well. Actually, was not a big fan of the movie The Other Guys. There were some really funny clips from that movie, but overall, I thought it was maybe one of Will Ferrell's least funny movies. And forgive me for not going in and figuring out how to recolor Will Ferrell's hands. I couldn't quite make that happen, but I wanted to do a show about, that's what came to mind, the other guys, the guys that we don't spend as much time talking about. Now, you do a show 365 days a year, you talk about everybody. Let's just be honest. We've talked about pretty much every single player that's on the roster, but there's obviously some guys we spend a lot more time talking about than others. The Sam Darnolds, the Cooper Kupps, the, Boye Mafes even, I think those are the leading characters. And what I want to spend a little bit of time on are some of these role players, essentially, that have a chance to either step forward or step back this season. And based on how they perform and the progression in their careers or regression, depending, that'll have a pretty meaningful impact on how this Seahawks season goes. And I picked two guys for the cover, but we're going to talk about more than two guys for this episode. I just had to stick with the poster to keep it accurate. So if you have not already given the show a like and click subscribe, I would appreciate it if you do. It would be great to have you on board. We're well over 20,000 subscribers now, on our way to 25, 30,000, who knows how many more. So I'd love to add you to that. Also go to patreon.com/hawkblogger, get you ad-free audio of this show each and every day, as well as access to the Discord channel. And soon it will be a bonus to be a patron, because Hawkblogger Ticket Exchange is, I think, just days away from launching, and I can't wait. I'm working to try to get some legal review on terms of use and privacy policy and all this other stuff. But once I get that out there, we're going to launch this thing, and being a patron will be something that helps identify you as a trustworthy member of the community. There's going to be other benefits over time of being a patron, so I highly recommend you join over there if you haven't already. All right. So I think there's a lot of guys that fit into this category, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they can't already be starters. It doesn't mean that they can't have already played a meaningful role of some sort, but I think these are guys that are just maybe a little bit less in the spotlight. And I'm curious who comes to mind for you when I bring that up. Who's a guy that is not a leading character in this season, but is going to have a huge impact on whether this season goes well or whether this season does not. And I'll tell you, like, the first person that comes to mind for me, and he's on the poster, it's Christian Haynes. It absolutely is Christian Haynes, because right now, I've got him penciled in as the starter at right guard. And that's a huge leap. That is a huge leap. This is a guy that last year was a 48 graded player by PFF at the guard position. And to have that guy become a starter and have him be a player that can actually hold that job and be a productive part of the team would be a massive step forward for him and for this roster. Let's face it, this guy was a third-round pick last year and came in with pretty high expectations. The idea was this was one of the highest floor guard prospects in the draft last year. And his floor was a little bit lower than I think others realized it was or expected it to be. Some of that might have been the leap from UConn to the pros. Maybe it was level of competition. Some of it may have been, physical. Like, was he in a good enough shape? Did he have the right body type or agility or right characteristics to actually excel in the NFL? Some of it might have been the scheme and the coaching. And we all have talked about Ryan Grubb and Scott Huff and the way they were running that offense. And there was a lot of stuff that was working better as a gap scheme at the end of the year than as a zone scheme. And I think that Christian Haynes is primarily he excels in zone blocking. That's what they did at UConn. That's what he is really at his best doing. He just struggled last year. And so if Christian Haynes can take that leap and earn the starting job and hold the starting job, that is a huge bellwether for whether or not this offensive line is going to take the step I think we're all hoping it takes. Yes, there's plenty of conversation to have about Charles Cross and Abe Lucas and Gray Zabel. But I think that this offensive line is only going to be as good as its weakest link. And if there's multiple weak links, then you're in trouble. You can usually afford to have one that you can kind of scheme around. You can't have two. And so if Christian Haynes can actually be a third-round quality player or better, I think that's a massive change to the ceiling for this team overall and for the future. To have a guy that's under club control for the next 3 years, including this season, at what is becoming a very expensive spot, you basically can just pencil in this young offensive line growing together for the next 5 years. That could be the difference between this team. Honestly, that could be the difference between this team having Super Bowl potential in the next few years or not. If you can have a young, talented offensive line that is growing together and is succeeding together, and you can keep that group around, that is a massive advantage in today's NFL. Look at the Detroit Lions. Look at the Philadelphia Eagles. Look around the NFL at the teams that have high-quality offensive linemen, high-quality offensive lines. Those are the teams that are winning regularly and contending for the Super Bowl. I'm not saying this is going to happen, so I'm not predicting this. I'm just telling you that it would be a huge, huge boon for the Seahawks if Christian Haynes stepped forward. Now, there's another guy that's in that category that could do what maybe Christian can't. If he can't do it, maybe it's Satawa Lamea. Satawa Lamea is a guy I really liked last year when he entered the lineup. After he entered the lineup in week 11, the Seahawks ranked 7th in the NFL in rushing. he was a huge part of unlocking that ground game once he came in. Now, he excelled in gap scheme runs, and he struggled a lot in pass protection. I told you what Christian Haynes' PFF grade was. Sataoa was even worse. He had a 37.9 grade, and worse than that, he had a 19.8 pass block grade. That's not good. Now, I thought he played better than those grades indicate. That's what my eyes told me. But he did have some trouble in pass pro. There's no doubt about it. But what will he look like in this new offense, in this scheme? Is it going to fit him well? Is it not? I don't know. I want to see how he looks relative to others. One of the things I'll get to see today for the first time is a rough idea of the depth chart on the offensive line. Who is in the starting group at right guard? Who is in the second player at right guard? Who's playing left guard behind Gray Zabel? I'm going to find those things out. I'm looking forward to seeing that today. And I think Sataoa is a guy I'm just not betting against. Christian Haynes has the higher pedigree in terms of draft pick, 3rd round pick for Christian, 6th round pick for Sataoa. But don't count him out. I think he's a crazy competitor. He's got a lot of juice to him, super physical. He's kind of the combination. He's in between an Anthony Bradford and a Christian Haynes from a skill set perspective. I'm not saying that's some great combination of proven talent, but Anthony Bradford's the big, strong brawler. Christian Haynes is, the zone targeting run blocker. Sataoa, I feel like is kind of a combination of those things. And I really like him. This is a guy that played a lot of tackle in college. And I think that kind of skill set lends itself well to agility and being able to get out and move. We'll see how this fits him. So I think he's another guy that fits this kind of other guy's moniker. Now, I'm going to go beyond the offensive line for sure, but I do want to kind of round out the offensive line conversation because I think Olu Oluwatimi's gotten a lot of conversation, so I don't consider him as much of an other guy. He's a predicted starter at center. I think Jalen Sundell is another guy. He is a guy that most people around the NFL have never heard of and certainly do not expect him to play a large role for the Seahawks. He is someone who made the team as an undrafted free agent last year. He was athletic enough that the team had him as a backup tackle last year before he ended up playing center. And it's one thing to play tackle in college. It's another for your coaches to believe you're athletic enough to play tackle in the NFL. I think that speaks volumes about, his abilities. He also played some fullback, which also indicates some movement skills. I think his potential, if he ends up surpassing Olu Oluwatimi and winning that starting job, I think that in some cases is the best case scenario because his athletic ceiling is higher than Olu Oluwatimi's. Now, I'm not rooting for him. I'm rooting for whichever one can be a great player to be a great player. That's all I want to see. But I think if you look at this objectively, I think the ceiling is higher if Jalen Sundell can win that job. I don't want him to win that job because Olu's playing so poorly that someone has to win it. I want him to win it with Olu playing really, really well and Jalen Sundell just playing better. That would be a really good thing for this team. So Jalen Sundell, Sataoa, Christian Haynes, those are all on my other guys list that I think will have an outsized impact on this Seahawks roster. Let's stick with the offense because I think if we get beyond the offensive line, there's some other names that certainly belong on this. And I think I'll start with the guy that's on the poster that I created, the thumbnail for the show, Jake Bobo. Jake Bobo is obviously a guy that a lot of fans love. More Bobo is a whole thing. DK Metcalf was big on Jake Bobo. And Jake Bobo had a pretty promising rookie season. Again, an undrafted free agent, came in 2023, had 19 catches and 25 targets, 76% catch rate, had 200 yards receiving, had 2 touchdowns, also had a rushing touchdown, as a matter of fact. So he had 3 touchdowns overall as a rookie. He had a 73.5 grade as a rookie receiver and a 77.6 run block grade as a rookie receiver. And I want to kind of see where that ranked. I'm going to do a quick little detour because my recollection, that was a pretty good ranking as a receiver, and especially as a rookie receiver last year. So I'm going to look at rookie receivers, and Jake Bobo was the 9th highest graded. Well, let me make sure I got this right. No, he was the 8th highest graded rookie receiver in the NFL in 2023. The only guys that are above him were Puka Nacua, Rashee Rice, Tank Dell, Dontavian Wicks, Zay Flowers, Jaden Reed, and Demario Douglas. He was ahead of Jordan Addison. He was ahead of Michael Wilson. He was ahead of Jackson Smith and Jigba as a rookie in terms of his PFF grade. Doesn't mean he was better than him, but this is just his PFF grade. If you look at run blocking and you look at wide receiver, Jake Bobo was, I think, one of the best run blockers in the NFL at the receiver position as a rookie. Giving me a second while I pull this up. But this is a guy that is tall. He's not super fast, but he is agile. He is good at contested catches. And I'm looking here at, let's get it, guys that have had enough snaps to make this meaningful. Jake Bobo in 2023 was the 2nd highest graded run blocking receiver in the NFL, behind only Brandon Ayuk. This was high level stuff for a rookie. And then last year, he fell off from a 73 grade to a 55 grade overall. He fell off from a 77.6 run blocking grade to a 53 run blocking grade. His receiving grade went from 71 to 56. He took a step back. His numbers last year, he caught 13 passes instead of 19, 107 yards, only 8 yards per catch. He did have 1 touchdown. But this is the guy that I think his spot on this roster is in question. It's just the reality. It's in question. He's a great special teams player. He's a guy that a lot of people love. But you look at the Seahawks depth chart, you've got Cooper Kupp, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Marquez Valdez-Scantling as your likely starters. And then we'll talk about some of the depth here, but, Cody White, Derek Young, I won't name all these guys because I'm going to talk about some of them as these other guy options. But there's some competition in that room. And the team kept... How many did the team keep last year? The team kept, I think, 3. I think the team kept 5 receivers. Maybe it was 6 receivers last year. I think they kept 6 receivers. That looks right. 7 ended up playing, but they kept 6. It's not going to be an easy group to make that cut. And so Jake Bobo is a guy that maybe he's a good fit for this. I can absolutely see him in like that Joe Jurevicius role that was in Mike Holmgren's offense in 2005, where you just see some of those physical contested catches, really an aggressive blocker, on a bootleg, catching some of those third down passes. Maybe he can step up as one of the third down targets. I just think Jake Bobo is a guy that maybe he ends up being nothing more than he has been. But I feel like there's more to him. I feel like he's a red zone target. If I think he would have been a more effective red zone target than DK Metcalf was, to be honest. I think there's more to Jake Bobo than what we've seen. And we'll find out. We'll find out if that's actually the case soon enough. Give the show a like and click subscribe if you haven't already. I would greatly appreciate that. Also, I want to make the offer that if you are looking for a Father's Day gift, I had a really good deal running, at least for this week, where you can get 50% off this Extra Pro wallet. This wallet that I love. All you got to use is promo code Hawk. And if you've ever had those wallets, I've always used those wallets recently, the really small ones that are just the size of the credit cards that you carry. But there's that kind of that awkward moment where you're at the checkout stand and you're trying to get the actual card you need out of it. This one's got a really nice little button right here. You press it, pushes up, and you've got all your cards available. Got a money clip, folds down, nice and thin, nice leather. And it's got this card that is a finder card. So you can hook that up to your iPhone and find my iPhone. And if you ever lose your wallet, you'll be able to find it because of that. So use promo code Hawk at extra.com. The link is in the description of the video. Take advantage. It's a great deal. And I think it's an easy Father's Day present. It is premium gift, and you get it for a really, really good price using promo code Hawk. All right. So, Jake Bobo might be a guy that's just a footnote in Seahawks history. This is kind of a make or break year for him. If he does not stand out this year, I don't think he's a guy that necessarily is going to have much more of a ceiling than what we've seen so far. Speaking of ceilings and speaking of wide receivers, Torrey Horton. Torrey Horton's a guy that was a 5th round pick this year and has the physical skills to be a starter. He has the potential to be a guy that has enough talent that the coaches are like, we have to get him on the field. There is an outside chance. I'm not saying it's likely, but there is an outside chance that the coaches are going to feel pressure to steal snaps from Cooper Kupp to give to Torrey Horton. I think the combination of skill sets that Torrey Horton and JSN have is a better ideal combination of skills than what Cooper Kupp and JSN have, because Cooper Kupp and JSN have a lot of similar skills. But Torrey Horton has speed. He's a great route runner. He's a great contested catcher. He's good running after the catch. If he can emerge as one of those guys that is just absolutely forcing himself onto the field, that's a big deal. That's a big deal for this team, because right now the receiver room is probably the biggest question mark on this roster. Outside of maybe the offensive line, depending. I don't have as many questions. I think the receiving room for me is a bigger question mark. Is Cooper Kupp going to be Cooper Kupp or anything close to him? Or is he truly the guy that looked like in serious decline last year? Is MVS going to be the guy that he's been his entire career, which is, just a guy that kind of moves around, a journeyman? Or is he going to be the guy that broke out and had the best 7-game stretch of his career with Clint Kubiak last year in New Orleans? The variance in this group is massive. I think we all know what JSN is. There's folks, we'll do another show another time about, well, JSN without DK Metcalf, which I think is a load of crap. But JSN's going to have to prove it again this year that he is the guy that I think we all know he can be. And then you got Torrey Horton, Jake Bobo, Ricky White, Cody White, Derek Young, Steven Sims, like John Rice Plumlee. Like, you've got these guys beyond them. There's a lot of question marks. And so if Torrey Horton and or Jake Bobo step forward honestly, that is a better outcome for the Seahawks than coming too reliant on the veterans in Cooper Kupp and MVS. Now, the ideal is that they're all great. That's the ideal. But one of the better versions of the future would be having Torrey Horton really step up and just force his way into snaps. So that's another guy on my other guys list. Now, we kind of go beyond receiver, and tight end for me is a big one. I'm going to give you two names. One that I almost guarantee you haven't heard of or haven't thought of much. The other that you have. AJ Barner is a guy that he did have a really solid rookie season. He ended up with 30 catches. I don't think people realize that's a lot of catches for the tight end position, period, in the Seahawks offense. But as a rookie, 30 catches, 245 yards, 4 touchdowns. Let's do a little search here. I have not done this before. Where does that rank among rookie tight ends in Seahawks history? 30 receptions. Where does that rank? In Seahawks history? So I'm going to look at this. We're going to try to limit it to tight ends, but let's look at guys that played for the Seahawks and were rookies. Rookie status. Yes. And let's do one more filter here. Let's make sure that they've had enough targets to make this interesting. Receptions greater than, let's say, 20. All right. So John Carlson has the most receptions by a rookie tight end in Seahawks history. In 2008, he had 55. Beyond that, let's see, who's David Hughes? He's a running back. Okay. AJ Barner had the second most rookie receptions for a tight end in Seahawks history. That's crazy. I didn't know that. Did you guys know that? The second most receptions as a rookie tight end in Seahawks history. I honestly didn't remember him having 30. That's a lot. And as far as touchdowns, I think he would also be second. John Carlson had 5. AJ Barner had 4. But consider this. AJ Barner's 4 touchdowns as a rookie is tied for 8th most by any Seahawk rookie. 4 receiving touchdowns, ties for 8th most. The guys that are ahead of him, Darrell Turner, who had 10, Brian Blades, who had 8, Joey Galloway and DK Metcalf had 7, Darrell Jackson and Tyler Lockett had 6, John Carlson had 5, and then you got this group of JSN, Steve Largent, Doug Baldwin, and AJ Barner with 4. That is quite the crowd to be in that AJ Barner joined. It's quite the club. So JSN, Steve Largent, Doug Baldwin, AJ Barner. You don't see many things that group those 4 players together. But there you go. AJ Barner was a really productive rookie tight end. And it makes me wonder, when we look at receiving and we look at the tight end position specifically, I'm kind of curious where AJ Barner lived as a PFF player. So he had a 61 overall grade, 63.7 as a pass catcher. So he ranked 33rd in the NFL. He actually had the same passing grade as Kyle Pitts, Dalton Schultz, was ahead of Cole Kmet, Jake Ferguson, Dawson Knox, Michael Mayer. He was well ahead of Michael Mayer. Similar to Zach Ertz. Like, he's right around that group. And that's as a rookie. If we look at rookies, obviously Brock Bowers was outstanding, but AJ Barner was the second highest graded rookie tight end in the NFL last year. And you got him in, what was it, the 4th round, as opposed to Bowers as like a top part of the 1st round player. So I think AJ Barner's got this I think there's this outside chance that AJ Barner is really good. Like, I think that is one of the least discussed possibilities on the Seahawks roster, is that AJ Barner is really good. He runs aggressively, physically. He's a good blocker. He's a good receiver. And tight end's a huge part of this offense. So if you're talking about more ammunition to potentially move on from Noah Fant, AJ Barner's progression is a big part of that. Elijah Arroyo's progression is a big part of that. But I think AJ Barner absolutely fits in this other guy's list. He's not one of the first 10 players, probably not one of the first 20 players people talk about when they talk about the Seahawks. But I'm going to give you a name that is far less known. And this could be so silly, who knows, a few weeks from now. They may cut him. I don't know. But I really was intrigued by the body type and the movement of Nick Callerup. Nick Callerup. That's what I said. He is from University of Minnesota. He is 6'5", 270 pounds. He's a mountain of a dude. And Eric Saubert is the guy that is expected to kind of make the team as the blocking tight end. But I think there is an outside chance Nick Callerup ends up being the guy that takes that spot. And he had an 81.7 run block grade in his final year at Minnesota. And Minnesota runs the rock. That's what they do. And this guy, I mean, I think there is a chance he becomes the third member of what is could be a really cool young trio of tight ends. If you've got Elijah Arroyo, who is the speed stretch aspect of that group, then you've got AJ Barner, who is the combination physical and receiver, and then you've got Nick Callerup as just the heavy that comes in and beats the crap out of people. That could be a really cool tight end room for years to come. So I'm personally really cheering for it. I'm not cheering against Eric Saubert. Like, the guy's been in the offense before. He knows it. He's an accomplished player. I want every single player on that roster to play really well and for it to be highly competitive. But if you could draw up the best outcome for the Seahawks, Nick Callerup becoming a guy that forces his way onto this roster is one of the better potential outcomes for the Seahawks. All right. So those are some of my other guys on the offensive side. I could talk about Kenny McIntosh, Zach Charbonnet. Like, there's guys that fit. I'm not sure that they really are in this true category of other guys. I think Robbie Oots might be in this category. I think this is a guy who, if he's a very good fullback, if he's a great blocker, which I think we have reason to believe he is, and maybe if he goes beyond just being a great blocker, if he's also someone who can use his tight end skills, be a receiver at times, not consistently, but just as that moment where no one's paying attention to him and he's wide open for a few yards or a touchdown. I think he has a chance to have a really outsized impact on this roster and on this team's fortunes. I think his chemistry with the running backs is going to be a really key part of how this running game works or doesn't work. And Brady Russell, he's in that category too. He's in that fight. You don't count him out at all. But I think that fullback role is going to be one to watch, and I think could absolutely have a bigger impact on this offense than anybody's really imagining. People outside of Baltimore probably don't really think about Patrick Ricard that much and how important he is to that identity of that offense. Obviously, Kyle Juszczyk has been a huge part of what Kyle Shanahan's done down in San Francisco, and this is a branch of that offense. And I think that Robbie Oots is a combination of the Patrick Ricard, Kyle Juszczyk kind of player. He is not going to be as nimble as Kyle Juszczyk, but I do think that he's got more to offer in terms of a pass catcher than probably Patrick Ricard does. So I think he's another one for me that makes the list. But let's switch our attention to defense. I think there's a few guys that jump up in this list for me. The number one, you might question whether he belongs on this list, but it's Riley Mills. Riley Mills, we don't know when he's going to play. He's coming off an injury. He said in his post-draft press conference that he thinks he's going to be back by training camp. John Schneider said, middle of the year. Who knows? But if Riley Mills comes back, and Riley Mills is a plus player, an impact rookie on that defensive line, that would be huge. And it's not a crazy thing to expect. This is a guy that was going to be like a top 50 player before his injury for Notre Dame in the playoffs. He's a guy the coaching staff loves. And if he can come in and be a positive contributor to that defense and that defensive line, nobody's counting on that. Nobody's counting on it. Nobody's talking about it. We probably won't even get to see him on the field for who knows how long. But this is a guy that absolutely could have a much bigger impact. He could have a second or third round level impact on this team whenever he does get on the field. You might have another second round pick sitting there lurking in the shadows that, just because of this injury, you were able to get later in the draft in the 5th round. So I think he's definitely on this list, this other guy's list. I debated whether Tyrese Knight belongs on this list. I'm going to leave him off. I'm going to put him on a different list. I'm going to talk to you guys about another day. But he doesn't get much conversation. He certainly is a guy that nationally is not well respected, at least to the point I think he should be. Pretty much everyone was like, why didn't they get more linebacker? They have only Ernest Jones, While I think that it would have made sense for them to add more linebackers, I still think that they were sleeping on Tyrese Knight. But I'm not going to put him on this list. I do think that if we go to kind of the outside linebacker position, I don't know if I can I mean, I think Uchenna Nwosu has got to be on that list. This guy has such a high ceiling when he plays and is healthy. And I know everyone's going to be saying, well, but he's never healthy. I'm not there with Uchenna Nwosu, and I'm just not a guy that's going to hammer people for being injured in a game that has 100% injury rate. But this is a really good player when he is healthy, and nobody's counting on that. If he's able to come in and be the Uchenna Nwosu, he doesn't have to be something he's never been. He's just have to be the player he was prior to, the torn pec and then the MCL or whatever the knee injury was that he had. He just has to get back to who he was. That's a huge add to this team. Huge. That could be the difference between a dominant defense and a very good defense. And he brings tremendous juice as well as talent and leadership. Just like he's a guy, he's a dude. So I think Uchenna Nwosu absolutely belongs on the list. And I could have said Josh Jobe, but we talked about him a lot. I think I'll give you two names in the cornerback room that kind of stand out to me. So Nehemiah Pritchett's a guy I am not high on. I've been very clear. I thought he got toasted in camp all last season. I was not super impressed once he got into games late last year. But he was a guy they've kept around, and there's got to be a reason for it beyond the fact that he was drafted by the team. If he rounds into a corner that is a good player, that would be a huge, that would be a monumental development for this roster. But I'm going to give you another name to watch, and it's not probably the name you're thinking of. Everyone's going to think about Zy Alexander. Watch out for Isis Waxter. ISAS Waxter, Waxter. Tall, lanky corner. I think he's a really interesting player. He's a guy that Leslie Frazier has invested in. He's 6'2", 215 pounds. And he's played significant snaps. He played for Villanova, so he's playing a lower level of competition. But in 2023, 2 seasons ago, he had a 90 coverage grade. Last year was 77. He has been in 2023, he held opposing receivers to a 30 passer rating. The year before, it was a 56 passer rating. So Isis Waxter is a guy that he's got the build. 6'2", 215. That's like a safety, almost. So keep an eye on him as somebody that could push his way up this depth chart. We'll see what happens. We've talked about trades and other things that are going to add to the cornerback room. But he's a guy I'm certainly interested to get a little bit more of an eye on. All right, a couple other players in the secondary that I want to call out. D'Anthony Bell. D'Anthony Bell was a quiet free agent pickup from the Cleveland Browns. And D'Anthony Bell is a hammer. He comes in and looks to annihilate people. He's not the strongest coverage guy, but he will hit you in the mouth. And I think he's a guy that could be a fan favorite. I think he's a guy that is going to push for snaps. He's a great special teams player, but he could push for more snaps. And I think he's a guy to keep an eye on. The other one that I'm going to call out there is Jarek Reed. Jarek Reed is a guy that really was on the right trajectory as a rookie. He was leading the NFL in special teams tackles. And you might say, oh, why does that matter that much? Well, Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman, Doug Baldwin, a lot of your favorite LOB members, they started off by being great special teams players. And I think Jarek Reed, it is a test of athleticism, of grit, of toughness. and whether or not you're the right kind of athlete and player to be able to survive in the NFL. I think special teams is a great arbiter of that. And Jarek Reed has put a lot of time into his body. He is super rocked up and came back from his injury last year. He should be at his peak now. Watch out for Jarek Reed as a guy that's going to force his way onto the field. I think he's got something to prove, and I think he's got something to offer. And it's going to be a very hotly contested safety room. Some people might say Kobe Bryant belongs on this list. He might. I hesitate with starters in general to put them on this list of other guys. But Kobe Bryant certainly finished the year with a flourish. I'm not going to put him on the other guys list because I think he's on similarly to Tyrese Knight, he's on a different list I will share in the future. But I think Jarek Reed absolutely belongs on this list. D'Anthony Bell absolutely belongs on this list. So that's my list of other guys. Who do you guys think I'm missing? Anybody you think I am missing that belongs there? I'm looking through chat while I'm doing that. Give the show a like, click subscribe. Thank you for doing it. Give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. We're up to a 4.8 on Spotify. Thank you, folks, for giving us 5-star reviews. I think we're still at 4.6 on Apple Podcasts. Would appreciate you taking a second to do that. Yeah, I think some people are talking about Tariq Woolen or Jonathan Hankins. I don't think about Woolen as an other guy. He is a leading character in this team. Hankins, I don't know. I love Jonathan Hankins. It's hard for me to think like other guy to me has to fit not just someone you don't talk about as much, but someone who's got a high variance outcome for the year that could end up being a much better player than you expect. At his age, it's hard for me to think that the variance is going to be high. I see someone talking about Damian Martinez. I think that's one I thought about for sure. Damian Martinez. I think Kenny Mack, like they've got 3 backs in front of him. He's going to have to beat those guys out before that even happens. And it's just hard for me to think a third back is going to be a huge part of this team, but you never know. Like Kenny McIntosh played really well last year, but he didn't get to play that much. And I think that Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet are solidly there, but that's a fair one. It's definitely, he's a guy that was a consideration. All right. If you haven't gone to jkboots.com recently, now is a great time to go. Use code HawkBlogger, gets you $75 off your JK Boots. Also, we'll donate $15 to the Wildland Firefighters Foundation to keep our Northwest Forest firefighters safe so that they can protect our Northwest forests. And man, they've been beautiful in this summer weather the last few weeks. So head on over to jkboots.com, use code HawkBlogger. Head over to exter.com. The link's in the description of the video. Use code HAWK there. Gets you 50% off of this Extra Pro wallet. I love this Extra Pro wallet. Like I've shown you a bunch of times, press the button. You get all your cards shown to you. Awesome wallet. Fits perfectly in your pocket. Not too big, not too bulky. Really nice leather. It is a perfect Father's Day present. So use code HAWK over at extra.com and get your full 50% off there. Patreon.com/HawkBlogger. Sign up there, get you ad-free audio for this show every single day. Also gets you access to the Discord channel. So consider doing that if you haven't already done it. Appreciate all of you for sticking around. I am going to head over to the VMAC a little bit later, and I will maybe have another show later tonight. Most likely due to some family stuff I got to handle. We'll be back with you tomorrow. And as of right now, I think we're going to might have a special guest tomorrow. We'll see how that works out, but working on that for now. Also I think Brady Henderson's due to come on later this week. I haven't had a chance to catch up with Brady for a while. So we got some guests, we got some content. Keep an eye out on the show. Make sure you like and subscribe to get all the goodness. Click that bell to get notified because you never know exactly when I'll go live. All right. This has been another episode of Hawk Blogger Mornings. Take care, everybody. Have a good one.